Prior to the game, the Giants placed a lot of faith in some young players as well as some veteran players, and that faith was immediately rewarded as the Giants came back against long odds and won this game in dramatic fashion in the ninth.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since way back in 2015. I've been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code all lowercase lockedonmlb for a first deposit match up to $100. And coming up on today's show, like I said, roster moves yesterday that put faith in young players as well as some veteran players. And that faith was immediately rewarded in what I think was just a crucial game for the Giants in terms of quote-unquote momentum. But really what I mean by that is if you lose, which the Giants were very close to doing, 2 outs in the ninth, down by a run with nobody on, 1 out, nobody on, 2 outs, runner on first, and they come storming back and they win this game. And if they lose, they're 4 games under 500. If they win, they're 2 games under 500. So, these types of swings are big. And going into the All-Star break, getting the pitching that they have coming back, we saw Blake Snell return last night and put in by far his best start with the Giants here in July. And I don't know. It was just a really big comeback win for the Giants, who led 1-0 going into the 7th. Ryan Walker with a rare off night. I mean, he's just been so good and so reliable and so steady. And so it was really surprising to see him struggle and give up the lead. And we saw a continued high-level performance by Elliot Ramos, who hit another home run and hit a double in this game. But I want to go to that 9th inning and look at what was the win probability for the Giants there. So as soon as Mike Yastrzemski flew out to center, the Giants had, according to Baseball Savant, so Yaz flew out to center, which meant it was Patrick Bailey on first with 2 outs down by a run. The probability of winning that game for the Giants, according to Baseball Savant, was 10%. And so that actually sounds not terrible. And then Tyler Fitzgerald walked, which was a great at-bat. Patrick Bailey's at-bat was great. Opposite field line drive, low line drive down the left field line. Got it started. I mean, without that, they had a first pitch out, right, to start the inning. Wilmer Flores grounded out to short to start the inning, and then Bailey singled to left, and Yaz worked a 2-0 count but flew out. And so you're one just swing away from losing this game. So you're very, very likely to lose this game. But Tyler Fitzgerald, who had homered in his last at-bat, draws a well-deserved and hard-earned walk. And, I mean, laying off this guy's changeup, Trevor Richards, I believe was his name. Seen him around on other teams. I can't remember exactly what teams he's played for, but yeah, Trevor Richards, the gray-haired reliever with a big changeup, and is having a nice season. I mean, ERA even after last night's game in which he gave up a couple runs is 3.40. So Trevor Richards on the mound for the Blue Jays. Yeah, I mean, 3.40 ERA, 2.85 expected ERA. This guy's been really good for Toronto, and the Giants battled him tough against this really good changeup that he was featuring. And, it's a young guy like Tyler Fitzgerald there who works a key walk. I mean, he technically, one of the pitches was like it nipped the strike zone, and it could have been strike 3 if we had like an automated strike zone, but it was a pitch that really shouldn't be called a strike because it was diving so much. I don't think there's anything you can do with that pitch. And by the way, earlier in the at-bat, a pitch that was off the plate was called a strike. And so let's just say it evened out there. But Fitzgerald fouled off a changeup, and then he took a couple of fastballs, one just off the plate away and high a little bit, and then he took ball 4 on a fastball that was way up out of the zone. So that was huge for a young player like Fitzgerald, an inexperienced player like Fitzgerald, to lay off, just to throw up an at bat like that with 2 outs in the 9th, down a runner on first, and then in his previous at bat hitting a homer. I mean, he played a huge role in this win. And then it was Brett Wisely who was clearly sitting on the changeup, I think, because the first pitch was a fastball right down the heart of the plate, and he took it. Second pitch was a fastball, and he was super late on it. And then the third pitch was a changeup, and he put it in play. He lunged, kind of reached for it, got enough of it to hit it up the middle and just in a perfect spot. And so if that ball, that could easily be right at somebody, but instead it just found a perfect spot. And I'm going to look back and see, that similar batted balls to the one Wisely hit, which was 83 miles an hour. Similar batted balls are hits only 10% of the time. So the Giants had a 10% chance of winning this game when, after Yastrzemski flew out, and that ball that Wisely put in play, if you take away knowing the direction the ball went exactly, you just know it was fair, but it was like at the trajectory it was hit, at the velocity it was hit, it's an out 90% of the time. And so it was just hit in a perfect spot, and it, nobody, even if the second baseman who made a dive for it and got a glove on it, even if he could have just dove and caught the ball on the dive, he wasn't going to get an out, but it wouldn't have scored a run. It would have been bases loaded, 2 outs, still down a run, and you don't know what's going to happen at that point. But it hit off his glove and like deflected into center field, and that allowed Patrick Bailey to easily come around and score. And all of a sudden, game is tied. Tyro Estrada comes up, and he also has a good at-bat with, he swings at a ball on the first pitch. He fouls a couple pitches, and then he takes some good changeups down below the zone. And then another changeup is thrown down below the zone on 2-2. And it looked like, this ball was spiked by Trevor Richards, and like it was way out in front of home plate. So not really tempting for Estrada. And it looked like the ball kicked left a little bit. And the catcher, Danny Jansen for the Blue Jays, just had a rough hop. That ball almost came up towards his face. And it did look to me, if you look at it in super slow-mo, like that ball hit the ground and like turned left. Well, left from the vantage point of the pitcher. So his right. Looked like it took a right-hand hop. And he tried to get that right shoulder to block it, but it squirted way away from him. And it was Tyler Fitzgerald on third. And he's the fastest player on the Giants, one of the faster players in the league, actually, if I am remembering correctly. And he came around and he came from third and scored easily. So, yeah, it's just, to me, like a really big win for the Giants to come back 2 outs, runner on first, down a run, and to win that game, to start the last homestand going into the All-Star break. So the Giants, like I said, 45-47 instead of 44-48. They've had a lot of games that have been close, and they've come out on top. They've done this a lot where they've kind of battled hard and beaten some bullpens and won late games. They've had a lot of walk-off wins. Their record in one-run games is pretty normal at 13-13. They're 5-5 in extra innings. And so that's kind of one of those things where it's like a luck indicator, not luck necessarily, but, if you're just like terrible in one-run games, like the Padres were last year, this year they're 10-12. It's like, and Padres were terrible in extra innings last year. This year they're 3-1. So it's just kind of a random thing. But the Giants are very much right in the normal range there, 5-5 in extra innings, 13-13 in one-run games. So there's nothing weird going on there is kind of the way that I would explain that. But, a one-run win here, and it was a very big one. And so coming up in just a minute, a little more granular about how their faith in a couple of young players specifically was immediately rewarded in this win. So we'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, this episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rivals' cities. The Giants do go to L.A. coming up later this month after the All-Star break, and there's also all kinds of places. That's the beauty of baseball, is that you can look at the schedule and you can look at when you have time to travel, and there's just so many different places you can go. I love to do it. And Booking.com has on offer hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rivals' cities, even in Los Angeles. So, from hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't have to be a stressful event in and of itself. And for me, I love going on the road and traveling to different MLB cities throughout the summer. It's just a fantastic thing. And I've got a couple cities on my radar moving forward. And I've already taken advantage of Game Time and gone to some great cities and gone to some games this season. I've been to Boston, LA, New York, or excuse me, not New York. What am I talking about? San Diego, Colorado. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on Game Time actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And with killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. My favorite thing is the Game Time guarantee, which means if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, as promised, we are going to get into how the Giants' faith in some young players was immediately rewarded in this win last night. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, everydayers. Tomorrow, we will be breaking down, given the timing of the game, we'll probably be waiting till after. I also have something going on before the game tomorrow. I have some stuff going on after the game too. So everydayers, we're going to be probably breaking down the last two games of this series. Tonight, it's Logan Webb versus Chris Bassett. Pretty good matchup there. Webb, first-time All-Star, deserving for 4 years, finally makes it. And very intriguing finale matchup of Kevin Gausman, who's, by the way, struggling this year with a 4.64 ERA and a lot of declining numbers. So if you want to talk about the risk of the long-term deal, we're starting to see it with Gausman. We're seeing it with Rodon in New York for pitchers who are in their 30s. Anyway, and then Jordan Hicks will be going up against Gausman. So that'll be great to see Gausman back in San Francisco. Hopefully he gets a nice ovation. Anyway, that'll be coming up for you tomorrow. at some point, probably later in the day. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So, like I said, the faith that the Giants put in a couple of young players was evident when they DFA'd Nick Ahmed prior to last night's game. And so our episode yesterday, I was all ready to record, and then I get an email from the Giants media department saying they had made a bunch of roster moves, which we knew some were coming. But one of those moves was that they had DFA'd Nick Ahmed, and so we definitely talked about that yesterday. So if you heard that, then I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here. But if you didn't hear that, the easy kind of reaction to this was that they clearly have seen enough out of Brett Wisely and Tyler Fitzgerald to presently let them play shortstop over the older Nick Ahmed, who's also a free agent at the end of the year. So there's like several reasons for this. Number one, being younger and more athletic. Number two, those guys are performing well. Number three, it gives them about 20 days to like really see what they have in these two players and see if they can really handle that spot. And if not, maybe the Giants need to go out and make a move at that position prior to the trade deadline. And also they have other guys on the 40-man in Marco Luciano and Casey Schmidt who are also in that mix potentially if Wisely and or Fitzgerald either struggle or get hurt. And so they're like four deep there at that position on the 40-man with young players. And so I understand completely the Nick Ahmed DFA. He was good defensively, not a great arm and not much of a hitter, but otherwise, picked it clean and just a nice veteran presence. So best of luck to Nick Ahmed. We'll see. I mean, maybe he clears waivers and maybe he agrees to go to the minor leagues. I mean, it's definitely possible, but we'll see what happens with Ahmed. But immediately in this game, I mean, not immediately, Tyler Fitzgerald came up in a spot with a runner on third and less than 2 outs, and he was not able to get that run in, so that was big. But then he did homer, in his next at bat, and then he drew that key walk in the 9th inning. And then Brett Wisely struck out twice, as the Giants struck out 14 times, 13 against Yusei Kikuchi, who had, arguably the best start of his career. 13 strikeouts, no walks. Unbelievable stuff from Yusei Kikuchi last night. He did give up 2 solo homers, one to Elliot Ramos, one to Tyler Fitzgerald. But Wisely went 2 for 4, including that hit in the 9th inning that tied the game. And so Brett Wisely, I've been saying this, he's just looked like a different guy from the moment he came back up this year. He was on this team last year and just wasn't good at all. But he's been a totally different guy and has been capable defensively at the shortstop position, as has Tyler Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald is versatile as well. He's extremely fast. In fact, I'm going to verify what I said about Fitzgerald being one of the fastest runners in the game. He comes in at 15th among players with at least 10 sprints, and those are defined as basically when a runner is running at their hardest and they're able to nail that, basically the top 10% of their sprint speeds is considered what their sprint speed is, something like that. But anyway, he's 15th. Tyler Fitzgerald is 15th in baseball, virtually tied with a bunch of guys like Byron Buxton. Corbin Carroll is a little bit slower. Tyler Fitzgerald is just very fast. And if we look at specifically the Giants, I think we're going to find that he is by far their fastest runner. I'm just going to double check on that. Yeah, I mean, the next closest player is Matt Chapman, who's underratedly fast at 28.8 feet per second in his sprint speed. And Tyler Fitzgerald is at 29.7 feet per second. So a whole extra foot, well, almost a whole extra foot per second for Fitzgerald. So, yeah, like I said, 15th fastest player in baseball. And there's no, Matt Chapman is going to come in at number 57, whereas Fitzgerald, like I said, 15th. And so, you like speed, you like athleticism, then you're going to like Tyler Fitzgerald. And he's also hit, he's hitting in his major league career 261, 317 on base, 441 slugging. Strikeout rate is a little too high at 32%-ish in his major league career, spanning 45 games. He's got 9 steals, and he's been caught once in his major league career. And so I'd like to see a little bit more just taken off running from Fitzgerald, but they talked about not wanting him to be pinch hit for so much. They want to just continue to give him chances to play and actually really kind of cement a role on this roster. And that was part of the reason that they decided to DFA Nick Ahmed, because they needed to clear some spots on the roster because they had Blake Snell, Tyler Estrada, and Wilmer Flores coming back. And so moves needed to be made. And that's part of why they made that move. And I think it was rewarded immediately. And Luis Matos went 1 for 3, did not strike out, was the only starter who didn't strike out in the game. And that's kind of a Luis Matos special. His strikeout rate is very low. Went 1 for 3 with a single in this game. And he's also a beneficiary of a move that the Giants made to go younger in trading Austin Slater. And we broke that move down. I think that was a couple of episodes ago. So anyway, Matos, Fitzgerald, Wisely. And then you've got other young players like Ramos and Bailey. And then, Estrada, kind of borderline young player too. And in the bullpen, you've got a lot of youth as well. And then in the rotation, you've got some youth with Hayden Birdsong, total babyface, and Kyle Harrison. Logan Webb's not old. So all of a sudden, the turnover to some youth is happening for the Giants. And it's happening while they're playing well. They're hanging with good teams. They're beating good teams. I know that they're 2 games under 500, but they've been playing well for a couple weeks now. And you love to see it. So anyway, coming up next, we're going to just not briefly, but we'll dive into the return of Blake Snell and how it was his best start of the season. We'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into 1,000. And if you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week, from lowering select players' stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. And so I've taken advantage of these Tuesday lowered stat projections a couple of times with Logan Webb and Chris Sale, and it's just a lot of fun. And PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code all lowercase LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, here we go. We're going to get into the return of Blake Snell, finally back again after missing about a month with another, the same injury that he went down with the first time. the adductor strain, and he came back and he had easily his best start in a Giants uniform. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow the episode is going to be kind of an evening one or late afternoon at the after 5. I think I've got just a lot going on tomorrow, and it's a day game, and so like I said, Logan Webb, Chris Bassett tonight, and then Jordan Hicks, Kevin Gausman tomorrow. So a lot of intrigue. We'll see if there's any roster moves. And a big series for the Giants. They've done pretty well at winning the first game. They won the first game against at least the Guardians and the Braves on their road trip, and then yesterday against the Blue Jays. And I don't remember. I think they won game 1 against the Dodgers. So when you win that first game of a series, it really sets you up well to win the series. So let's see if they can finish the job here against Toronto, unlike like they were not able to do against the Guardians. And also a reminder about Postcast with Eric Engel. If you don't want to wait until me late tomorrow coming out talking about these next 2 games, you can check out Postcast with Eric Engel, or regardless, check it out on Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube, live after the game, instant reaction. And then that feed, once it's uploaded, it gets put onto the Locked On Giants normal podcast feed, just not on our YouTube channel, because we have our own separate YouTube channel, Locked On Giants. And so anyway, but it's part of the Locked On Giants umbrella. So check that out, Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button today. So Blake Snell returns from the injured list finally, and he makes his 5th? I'm just going off of memory here. 7th start of the season for the Giants, and easily his best if we look at the kind of game log for him this season. First start of the year, 3 innings, 3 runs. He threw a ton of pitches, if I recall. So it could have been a lot worse. Next start, 4 innings, 7 runs against the Tampa Bay Rays, his former team. Next start after that, 4 2/3 against Arizona, 9 hits, 5 runs, and then he went on the IL and missed a little over a month. Came back and made that first start against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, 3 1/3, 4 runs allowed, 4 walks. And then, so each time he's made 3 starts and then gone on the injured list. So then he went against the Phillies at home, 4 innings, 4 runs, 3 earned, 7 strikeouts. Decent outing there, but faced 20 hitters in 4 innings. I guess that's not bad. I guess that's not terrible. Anyway, next outing, 4 2/3 against the Yankees. He had to get pulled in the middle of the outing because of, he had an injury, and he allowed 3 runs in those 4 2/3, but it was a good outing until then. Kind of fell apart in that inning a little bit. But anyway, he misses even more time this time around than the first time, and he comes out here and he goes 5 innings for the first time all year. He goes 5 innings. He had gone 4 2/3 twice, but 5 innings, only 18 hitters faced, 1 hit. He did walk 3. He only struck out 3, but no runs allowed. First time all year he's allowed less than 3 runs. And, most innings and fewest runs by 3 that he's allowed in a start. And so it's just good to see. He's historically a slow starter. Like even last year, I've said this before, but through 11 starts, 8 starts or something, he had a high ERA, and he ended up having a 2.25 ERA when all was said and done, because he was just so dominant in the second half or last 4 months of the season, something like that. He just went on a historic run to end the season. And so he wasn't injured last year. He made all 32 starts. So it's a little different this year because maybe it takes him X amount of starts to get into that groove. But, this guy is not, his ERA coming into the game was close to 10. But with the 5 scoreless innings, he lowered it to 7.85. Expected ERA of 4.39. I just expect Blake Snell is going to be so much better if he can stay healthy moving forward. He's, the reigning Cy Young Award winner in the National League. In his career, his ERA is 3.33. I hear a lot of talk about, he's had some Cy Young years, but in between they weren't so great. Well, I mean, the year before he won the Cy Young with San Diego last year, in 2022, he had a 3.38 ERA in 128 innings. I mean, yeah, the year before that, 4.20 ERA, but then 3.24, 4.29, 1.89, 4.04, 3.54. So he's just a good pitcher. I mean, he's had 1 year in his career, and that was 2021, where he had a below league average ERA, park adjusted ERA, and that was in, like I said, 2021. In his career, he's been about 20% better than average at preventing runs in terms of ERA. So, Blake Snell, Logan Webb, Kyle Harrison, Jordan Hicks, Hayden Birdsong, and then Robbie Ray and Alex Cobb coming back. It's so funny. Like they've had like such an extreme lack of starting pitching at times this year, and then they have the potential to have just a huge abundance of starting pitching talent like soon. And so we'll see how it all plays out, but Snell coming back and having a good outing was definitely an encouraging sign, and hopefully he can just stay healthy the rest of the way and get on a groove like he often does later in the season. We shall find out. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow, later in the day, breaking down the final 2 games of this series, see if the Giants can win at least one and maybe even sweep. They've got a shot. So, also, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. Today, you are now Locked On Giants.